Hello, I'm Trevor Emdon, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about how to make good decisions every time. And to do that I'm going to tell you a story. When I was in my 30s, I quit my job. I had no other job to go to. I simply had decided that I wanted to go my own way in life and set up my own training and consultancy practice. I vividly recall the conversation I had at the time with my father on the phone. My dad was a dyed-in-the-wool, get a secure job and stick with it kind of a man who was born in the Depression years and lived through World War II, so I understood that survival and the meeting of basic needs was paramount for him and his generation. This, however, was 1992. Our lives weren't under siege as his had been. Survival, it seemed to me, was more or less assured. I remember he said to me, "I hope you're doing the right thing." And I considered his concern for a moment. Was I doing the right thing? How could I know that? I made up a reply on the spur of the moment which wasn't bad. At least it deflected any further argument. I said, "I don't know, Dad. I'm just doing a thing. I can't foresee the consequences from here. But I only know I have to try." In terms of my financial stability, it turned out that I had a lot to learn, and it wasn't until 2013 that I finally made the break with traditional employment for my income. But that's another story. Since that conversation with my father, I've often pondered his concern. How can we ever know if we're doing the right thing? By what criteria are we assessing that? My father passed away in 1995, so I can't revisit the conversation with him in person, but I'm pretty sure I'd get close to how he was weighing it up in his mind. He was prioritising financial security and along with it the roof over my head and a certain standard of living that our family and class took for granted, like not being hungry or homeless. Not too much to expect from a 20th century man with a decent set of qualifications and some experience. But for me, something was off. I respected, still do respect, those values. But I wasn't measuring whether or not I was doing the right thing by them. It was just that, for a long time, I couldn't quite put my finger on what I was measuring my decisions by. Life is, when you come to look at it, a series of decisions. What shall I wear today? Which cereal do I fancy for breakfast? Not particularly life-changing in those examples. But there's a whole other category of decisions which are definitely life-changing and often irrevocable too. Should I sell my business or buy one? Should I file for divorce or propose marriage? Shall we have a baby? Or, as it was in my case, shall I quit my job? After literally decades of pondering, I eventually came up with a foolproof formula for making clear and accurate decisions about anything that comes up in my life. And I have a strong suspicion it will work in yours too. I ask myself a simple question before taking action. The following rarely, if ever, applies to what I should wear or which cereal to eat for breakfast. I don't bother with those kinds of decisions. But the question is this: am I being motivated by fear or greed? If the answer is yes in either case, then that's a road not to go down. If it's no to both, then I listen to my heart, or maybe my guts, but never my head. Let me give you a couple of examples from my life which will make this much easier to see. When I began considering leaving my job, the question wasn't exactly, shall I leave my job, although that's where I began. Because the very fact that I was even thinking about it showed that I wanted to. The more accurate question, therefore, was, how can I leave my job? But what's missing from that question are all the fearful thoughts about why I might not be able to. After all, leaving a job is easy. You just resign. What I was really losing sleep over was how I'd pay all the bills. How would I make money? In other words, fear. As I've told you already, I did leave. And to assuage the fear, there were times when I did things I really didn't want to. Things which, at the time, I thought would keep me going financially. For example, I signed up with a network marketing company. I had no interest in the products and very little understanding of the marketing model, but I was shown examples of people making huge incomes on part-time hours. For me, it ticked the boxes of having the potential of financial freedom and even allowed me to keep some time freedom whilst I built up the business. Of course, I spent a small fortune in both time and money on products and promotional materials, attending events where everyone's in rah-rah party mode the whole time, and the vast majority of them, of course, aren't making any money. I don't want to go into the pros and cons of the MLM or network marketing business model. Just take it from me that my personal decision is that I will never go near it again. If you like it or you're doing well with it, I fully respect that, and congratulations. But can you see my motivation? Yep, greed. I had zero interest in the products or the business. I just wanted to rake in the checks so that I could get on with what I really wanted to do, which I don't think I'd clearly defined back then in any case. Over the years since, as a freelance online coach, I've bought a lot of courses and programs that promised some shortcut to fast money. Well, I used to buy them. On the face of it, you'd be forgiven for thinking that greed was the motivator there too, but it really wasn't. In almost every case, I can now see that it was the fear that my own efforts weren't enough, either that I lacked the skills or some understanding that would make my business fly. I'll give you one more example before I show you how to turn this around. This one's deeply personal, but I hope it will help others, so I'm going to share it. It was a decision my wife and I took about whether to have a baby. This one took a long time and clearly involves two people, so there's a bigger story than I can go into here. With our ages beginning to run against both of us, we had to make a final decision, one way or the other, about whether to start a family. We both felt we'd make excellent parents, but when all was said and done, and trust me, a lot was said and done, all very amicably too, we both realised that having a child was, for us, based on a fear of missing out, and not a desire to change our lives. Had we gone ahead, the rest of our lives would have been spent on parenting, and we eventually realised that for us, that had more negatives than positives. We like our lives the way they are, and we're having a lot of fun. We chose to continue down that path for as long as we're both able. Our considering having a family was based on the fear of never having that experience, and in the end, we realised that much as we would have loved a child, we would also felt the heaviness of responsibility and not the joy of it. Our hearts were not in it. Now, I want to keep this short, and clearly we could discuss the pros and cons of decisions like these indefinitely, but ultimately, it's of course a matter of personal choice. I'm not saying that my choices would be right for you or anyone else. The baby decision took a long time to arrive at because there were two of us involved, and therefore, whichever way we went, that had implications for our relationship as well. But we're both very comfortable with our decision and 100% sure that we'll have no regrets. The question now is, can we break this way of making decisions down into any kind of formula? And much as I tend to shy away from cookie-cutter solutions to problems, in this case, I think we can. To me, it looks like this. Step 1. Get clear about the question. Remember when I was considering leaving my job? It took me a while to realise I'd already decided I wanted to, which made me see that I was really asking how I could leave my job. In turn, that made me see that what I really needed to answer was the question, how can I bring in money if I quit my job? That was how I eventually came to see that I was acting, or rather not acting, because I was staying in the job, on a fear. Step 2. Check to see if you're acting out of fear or greed. These are sneaky characters, and it may take you a while to recognize them in your head. They can be very persuasive, but by simply asking the question, am I acting out of fear or greed, will help you a lot to know if that's what you're doing. From there, it's a simple yes or no choice, which leads to step 3, which is simply, if you're coming from fear or greed, at least put the decision on hold for a minimum of 1 good sleep. In the case of the baby decision, my wife and I held that one on ice for about 7 years. You almost certainly, if you're coming from fear or greed, don't need it, or you won't take the action required to make whatever result you're hoping for happen. Your heart won't be in it, so you'll abandon it sooner or later. This is where the shiny object syndrome comes from, buying one thing after another because this will be the answer, this will be the answer. They come from often greed and often fear as well, sometimes both. On the other hand, if you're clear that the answer is a definite no, then you're good to go. Moving forward with the decision feels exciting, and not moving forward feels dull, boring, or just wrong. And don't let not knowing how you're going to get where you want to go be the fear that stops you either. Something will always occur to you. Not knowing how is a whole topic in itself, and perhaps I'll do a video or even a training about that another time. In the meantime, I hope this has been helpful. And if you're stuck with a decision, why not talk to me? You can book a 45-minute free call with me from the link that's below this video if you're watching this on YouTube or on my blog, and we can discuss whatever you like.